game last night? Yeah, most viewed television event in the world. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the economics behind that, namely the advertising, what drives it. Guys, I am going to be, hopefully, depending on our pace today, we're going to be wrapping up Chapter 2 today. Now, we're going to be starting Chapter 3. After we get through Chapter 3, we're going to have our first quiz in this class. My quizzes in this class are not difficult. I say that flat out. If you study, if you look at the study guide, if you've taken notes in class, just by taking notes in class and being present, you can probably pass the test. You can easily get an A if you study. And I'll be providing a study guide for you guys all as well. A couple of things to remind you guys. The 5th is the last day to submit edits to your LinkedIn. I've provided feedback to everybody on what you need to fix. You'll find it in Canvas. And you fix it, email me. Tell me you fixed it. I'll rescore. I actually just upgraded a couple of grades to perfect scores over the weekend, so please take that serious. Guys, on Friday, we're going to have a guest speaker in class. I'll be giving you more information about that as well. Has anybody here ever heard of the company Cisco Systems? Anybody know what they do? A clue. If you're using the internet, you're touching Cisco at some point. Their routers actually run most of the internet in the world. And this is a marketing executive who just retired from Cisco Systems, one of the most high-tech companies in the world. Really good opportunity to use the network. Guys, right now I'll be starting to grade your 5 environments of business assignment, which was due on Friday. I'll be grading those this week. Now, you're going to have 2 things that are due on the 14th, on Valentine's Day. One is an economic systems exercise, and the other is something I didn't mention in class yet. It's a discussion board posting. It's an easy way to bulk up your grade. We're going to talk about both of those assignments briefly here. The first assignment you have due on the 14th, I'm asking you in 2 to 4 pages to compare 2 economic systems. Now you can pick capitalism and communism, you can pick communism and socialism, you can pick capitalism and socialism. The choice is up to you. I'm asking you to tell me in 2 to 4 pages. 2 pages is great, by the way. Don't worry about writing me a book. Tell me what's good, what's not good. So in other words, what's good about socialism, what's not good about socialism, what's good about capitalism, what's not good about capitalism. That's the first part, advantages and disadvantages. I want you to list examples of countries that function under each system. So if I said, for example, capitalism, what country would you say operates under that economic system? United States, Canada, Great Britain, lots of examples. How about communism? What's a country? I'm sorry? Cuba. Cuba, great example. So whatever countries you pick, or tell me whatever systems you pick, give me at least one example of a country that uses each economic system. And I'm asking then, you're going to have to cite a total of 2 articles, 1 for each economic system. So for example, if I picked capitalism and communism, I could cite an article about how the economy is going great in the United States. I could get an article from like Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, you name it. I might have an article about North Korea from the USA Today or from Wall Street Journal or any incredible news source about why their economy isn't doing well. I'm asking you then to tell me at the end of the article, at the end of your paper I should say, which economic system do you prefer and why? Now you guys know I'm a free market capitalist. I believe in capitalism. That being said, if you believe in communism or if you believe in socialism, I support your opinion. You're allowed to have your own opinion. If you think one of those systems is better, tell me why you think that. It doesn't matter if I agree with you. It matters to me that you back up your point. Do you guys understand what I'm asking for here? Okay. Guys, here's where people make mistakes on this assignment, where I have to nail people once in a while. When I get plagiarism, people love going to these sites online that post study cards and everything else and copying and pasting those definitions and changing a word or 2. Please don't do that, guys. Please put this in your own words. I'd rather have some flawed writing that was in your own words than perfect writing that came from somewhere else. If you have questions about whether or not it's plagiarism, hit me up. Guys, your other assignment that's going to be due on the 14th. I posted a video in our discussion board section, and it's about how we harvest cobalt. What's cobalt, guys? Anybody know what that stuff is? We all have it with us. Where do we have cobalt with us? Yes. You got it. A little piece of Africa is traveling with every one of us in our pockets because the number 1 source in the world of cobalt, which we use in cell phone batteries, is the continent of Africa. They're using children to harvest this stuff, and a lot of companies are questioning whether or not they should be doing business in these parts of the world. So if you were in charge of Apple You know who makes our iPhones? Tesla, whose electric cars rely on these kinds of batteries, or any kind of company that makes use of this stuff. Tell me what you would do and why. So what ethical decision would you make? Watch the video, give me your opinion. I'm not even asking for you to respond to anybody else. I'm asking for your opinion. Both these assignments are due on the 14th. I will remind you. Trust me on this. Any other questions, guys, before we jump in for today? Okay, well, guys, we're going to start with a little bit of discussion today. Obviously, the Super Bowl, we know the ads were going for 5.6 million. That's million with a capital M for a 30-second spot. What was your favorite ads from the Super Bowl and why? Anybody have one they enjoyed? What was your favorite ad?
Donald Trump's ad was my favorite. It won me a lot of money because I bet that his will come on before the Democratic.
How much did you win?
I won like $112.
$112?
He had worse odds actually, so
wow.
I just took it.
Now here's my question: you saw Trump's ad. Was it what you were expecting?
I don't know, but I didn't really care.
It was to me. It was way more toned down than I was expecting. I was expecting something fiery, and it was pretty calm, wasn't it? It was $112. Hey, can't argue. Who else had a favorite ad? Yes.
I wouldn't say it's a favorite, but one that stood out to me most kind of annoyed me was the Tom Brady ad.
Yeah. How many of you are Patriots fans? It's okay to admit it. How many of you are not Patriots fans? Yeah, I think that's kind of like poking the bear a little bit with that ad. But it was just like, man, we're totally being played. Tyrone, what about you? What's your favorite ad?
My favorite ad
Oh, that was fantastic. Taking his muscles off, and he's like this big around. I love that ad. He's got like the hairpiece. That was awesome. Yes? That took some engineering, didn't it? They had that. I can't even imagine the filming work they put in to get the, in addition to paying like the $5.6 million for the slot, you got to make that ad. That was not cheap. Who else had a favorite ad? Yes?
I like the Disney Plus ones. They're announcing all the movies and stuff just on there.
Oh man, I'm so psyched for the new Winter Soldier. That's going to be awesome. Yes.
I think the smartest one's the Google one about forgetting things, like older people. Because I mean, I feel like everyone can relate to that somehow. So like,
my wife was crying during that commercial.
My mom was too.
Raise your hand if you got the feels from the Google commercial. Oh my God! And the thing about it was. Now, it's funny because I'm thinking about this as a businessman, you know, and my wife is sitting there sobbing, and it's like, on one hand, I'm like, wow, this is really tugging on my heartstrings. And the other thing I was thinking is, man, this old guy's giving Google all his personal information. And it's like, so on one hand, we're promoting, like, that we're going to help people remember their lives. On the other hand, we're doing this by probably monetizing their personal information. This company is unbelievably powerful. And insidious and wonderful at the same time. It's confusing. Anybody else have an ad that they like? I'm old, so I loved the Mountain Dew Zero ad that was a play on The Shining. That was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So, but guys, this was big money. Does anybody remember too? I mentioned it in passing last week. Do you know how many ads were played during the Super Bowl? Round figures? 42 to 45 ads total. Seems like more. But that's total because it's variable. Your ad might not get on if they don't have the brakes at the right point. Well, somebody pull out their cell phone and do this math for me. Please. 5.6 times 42. Yes, that's how many millions of dollars were made just by selling the advertising slots. How crazy is that, guys? And that's not even counting pregame. This is big money we're talking about, guys. And here's the trick. You can't even technically, the fact that I have recorded the words Super Bowl on this recording means it could come up and get taken down for copyright when I put it on YouTube if it gets caught. They have copyrighted that name. So it's tough, guys. Any other thoughts before we jump into the material for today? This is business, guys. This is big business, and the NFL knows how to make money. We'll talk about the halftime show during another time, but that's a whole other conversation. Guys, what's our economy in the United States? What drives our economy more than anything? Competition, for sure. Now, if I said we are this type of economy primarily, what's our main business? Is it agriculture? Is it industry? Or is it something else? Used to be. we're a service economy, man, and we're getting more productive all the time. Now, when we say productivity, it does apply to the industrial economy as well. Here's the trick. Fewer people are doing more things. We're talking about things like automation. If you walk into a Taco Bell these days, there are giant touch screens so you can order your own food and make sure, if you're like me, you don't get sour cream on your burrito because I don't like sour cream. More people are working fewer hours because we're more productive than we've ever been. Now that sounds great. If you're a business owner, hey, this is wonderful. I can get more things done more quickly. Is there somebody who isn't as excited about high productivity? Who might be less excited about a productive society? Anybody you can think of? Yes?
Part-time workers.
You better believe it. Part-time and unskilled workers, guys. How many of you have been in a grocery store in the last week of your lives? Yeah, everything's automated. Over half the checkout lines in most major stores are self-checkout at this point. So that kind of productivity means sooner or later, we're going to also have fewer people working. Here's the other trick too, guys. I've mentioned this in class a couple times. We'll see who remembers. What is our current unemployment rate in this country? 4%. It's low. We're basically talking full employment, and that means companies that are having trouble getting the work done because they can't hire anybody else are going to start automating instead. It's a complex place. So in addition, because we are in the service sector, we're putting out more stuff all the time. We like to refer to quality and quantity of output. One of the best examples I can give you is the Sheets MTO. How many of you in the last month of your lives have ordered an MTO? Yeah, what's the best part? What's your favorite part about MTOs? What's your favorite part about MTOs?
Making it how I want.
I like it too. Like, is there a particular sandwich that like is your thing in there?
I haven't got Sheets until I got here.
Oh, okay. You're still learning the gospel. My favorite part is I can add bacon to absolutely anything. And it's so funny because it's like, when I get one of those coupons like I'm carrying around my pocket right now, you get all the upgrades for free. I've made it my personal challenge to see how expensive I could possibly make a breakfast sandwich. I think my high mark so far, I got to about $6.50. And that was because I did the double egg, the double meat, double cheese, and I added bacon at the end. I mean, this sandwich was like this big by the time I was done with it. But the point is, because it's automated, there's no way the employee can screw up. If somebody's taking your order manually and writing it down, there's all kinds of chances for error. When we go into a digital system, as long as the computer's working properly, there is no chance of error. And that's why we're getting higher quality and quantity output. Productivity is improving because of automation. So it's good and it's bad. Here's one of the other things we're starting to think about, though, and that is what we refer to as outsourcing. Talked about it earlier on. Guys, the term outsourcing could have a positive or a negative connotation. So I'm going to say outsourcing, and I'm going to ask to raise your hand if you think outsourcing is a positive term. So a few folks, because you understand the process as well. Who here thinks it's a negative term? Raise your hand if you've not yet raised your hand. Josh, how could productivity be, outsourcing be a positive or a negative? Sure you do. Let's talk about it. If you own a company, man, and you have the opportunity, you can either make things in your neighborhood, and you can pay $12 a night to get them made, or you can ship it to India and make them for $8. How is shipping it out better? Yeah, you're making more money. So we outsource stuff all the time. We associate that with the idea of industry. We associate it with the idea of making products. This kind of outsourcing is happening all the time. Has anybody here ever had to get an x-ray? Guys, there is a chance your x-ray was read by somebody in India or Australia. We outsource that stuff to other countries now too. For example, there are folks who live in Australia who are in a completely different time zone than us, who while we're sleeping can be looking at your x-rays, and they're certified in American hospitals. That is an example of how we're making our systems more productive. It's not just people at the low end of the food chain who are going to lose their jobs because of automation. So, guys, businesses naturally go through cycles. Guys, right now, we have two animals that we compare the stock market to. We have bulls and we have bears. What kind of market are we in right now? It's a bull market, man. Does anybody here play the markets, by the way? Anybody have a little bit invested? Oh, guys, what are you using? It's great, isn't it? Wait, Robinhood, guys, anybody can get in. You don't have to have big money. What is it, $50 to start an account? And you can play the markets. And here's the trick. If you invite somebody in, they get a free stock and you get a free stock, right? Isn't that how it works? I play the markets on there too. Guys, the economy is growing right now. We're expanding. It's getting bigger. We're in what we refer to as an economic boom right now. What is driving our economic boom? If you guys had to think in your own opinions, why is the economy doing so great right now? We know why the economy tanked in 2008. It was the housing market. Why are we kicking ass right now? Anybody know? What might be happening? Think about it for a second, guys. What are some things that we're doing well in this country? I'm going to help you out here, guys. You remember, how many of you remember Earl from Sheets? Did he tell you guys who the #1 source of petroleum is in the world right now? It's us. And it's because we invented this thing called hydraulic fracturing. When I say that term, a lot of people don't like fracking. That's the term for it. But the bottom line is we're producing a lot of energy in this country and we're exporting it other places. Tell me another company that's shaking things up right now. Who has changed the game? I'm thinking of taxis. What's a company that's Uber? Uber disrupted the entire industry because we're in a new age of the internet economy. Whether you're talking Uber, whether you're talking Amazon, whether you're talking Apple, all this tech, all these companies are emanating from the United States. That's driving an economic boom. Here's another part of it too, guys. When I say this too, love him or hate him, when Trump came into office, what did he promise to do to taxes? Promised to cut the corporate tax rate. So companies are reinvesting because they're not paying it out in taxes. All these things contribute to an economic boom. Well, that being said, we just came out of something before that called a recession. And that means if you go through 2 quarters of the year and your economy is not expanding, it's shrinking, it's declining, your GDP is going down, you're in a recession. If you get into more than 2 consecutive quarters, you're probably in a depression. There are a lot of people who argue. In 2008 and 2009, we weren't in a recession. We were actually in a depression. Nobody wanted to say that on the news because there would have been panic. If you heard, for example, all of a sudden the market's going to hell and we have no chance of getting out, what are people going to do? What are they going to do with their money? They're going to pull it out of the markets. They're going to say, I want cash. I'm going to pull my money out of the banks. I'm going to get cash. Yes?
Don't they have something set up that said that like not everyone can pull out at once?
They absolutely do, and the systems basically will shut down and crash to keep a recession from starting. But people will try. Back in the 1929, when we had the beginning of the Great Depression, the same thing happened. Well, eventually, though, we come back, we recover. It's kind of like high tide and low tide. We'll always come back. And here's the trick, guys. Right now, this economic boom that we're in cannot last forever. It can't. The same thing happened in the 90s, guys. We had the dot-com boom. In 1995, most people in the United States, I know this is hard to believe, most people in the United States did not have internet. That was 1995. Between 1995 and 2000, people started getting home internet. E-commerce started going crazy. It was an economic boom because everybody was throwing money into the markets. There was a bust in 2000 and we went into a recession. This is a natural cycle. It happens all the time, guys. What we don't want to hear is called a double dip recession. This is not in your book. Write this down, please. I beg you. If we have 2 quarters of positive growth where we were in a recession, think about it this way, guys. You're in a hole. You slid down into this muddy hole, and through determination, you're clawing your way out. You're seeing daylight, and as soon as you see daylight and go to make that last step out of the hole, you slide back in. How would you feel if that happened, Lauren? If you were almost out of the hole and you slid back in, how would you feel? It would be discouraging, wouldn't it? I worked so hard to get out of this and I'm back in. That's why double dip recessions are tough, because they make investors very pessimistic. So a double dip recession means we had 2 or more periods of slow recovery and we slide back in the hole after we were almost out. Nobody likes a double dip recession. Double dips are only good with ice cream. If you get 2 dips on your cone, that's wonderful. Nobody likes people who double dip their chips. We don't like double dip recessions either. That's such a social faux pas. We just had Super Bowl parties yesterday. You don't double dip your chips. You get a new chip. One dip per chip. Guys, in terms of how the government intervenes, too, we have several tools. We have fiscal and monetary policy. Fiscal policy simply means, how is our government managing money? How does our government, by the way, how does it make money? You got it, man. Nobody ever gets excited about paying taxes. Like, taxes is like getting called to the principal's office or getting called to HR. Nobody ever says, I can't wait to go to the principal's office. Nobody ever says, I can't wait to pay taxes. But they are a necessary evil. So the tools of fiscal policy, inputs and outputs. We pay taxes and the government spends them. Guys, why do we pay taxes? What are some things that we get out of it?
Police.
We get police for sure. You got it. Public services. You got it. Public education. Other stuff. What else do we get from taxes? Yeah, we can get food from taxes. There are two ways about it. Food stamps, food safety, FDA. We also get roads. We get all kinds of services. If we are in a war, we get military support. That's how the government spends this money. You can even get grants to go to school. So, guys, in terms of how we use money to manage, how we use fiscal policy is what I should say. We also try to make sure that we are managing our debts or our surpluses. A national deficit means how much credit is our government living on. We have been living on credit in this country since the 1970s. The budget has hardly ever been balanced in this country since the 1970s. So our national deficit is how much we're spending and owing other countries for lending us money past what we pull in. If we add that up over time, that gives us our national debt. If we don't owe people money and we have more money than we owe, then we've got a surplus. The last time we had a surplus was in the turnover between, I guess that would have been between Bill Clinton and the second President Bush. We had a surplus at that time. We have not had a surplus in this country since the year 2000. So we are operating at a deficit. Guys, this is how bad our deficit is. It's over 20 trillion. And I'm going to show you something called the national debt clock. You can actually watch our debt accumulate in real time by going to the U.S. national debt clock. Let's see where we are today. All right. Right now, our U.S. national debt, as it is going up as we're watching it, is 23 trillion, 252,463,958 and some odd cents. Is this a problem, guys? Yeah, it's a problem. Guys, and every time, how many of you have ever heard about Congress having to vote on raising the debt ceiling? Even if you don't know what that means, have you heard about this? Any idea what that means?
Increasing the amount of debt we're willing to take in.
You got it. So let's say, for example, we all have that friend who just lives on a credit card. Let's say, for example, I'm getting used to the idea that I have $2,000 in debt hanging over my head. Well, my life's getting more complicated. I need to have some more spending money. So I'm going to allow myself to carry $3,000 instead. And next year, maybe I'll raise it to $4,000. What's the problem for me as an individual with that?
You're going to have to pay it back eventually.
Yeah, and at that rate, am I ever going to pay it back? No. And that's exactly what we're running into. Guys, when I say this, I think one of the tools, when I say this too, I don't mean it as a political statement, I mean it as a financial statement. When the president said we're going to cut corporate tax rates, we're going to draw in less money from businesses, his strategy was companies who are locating outside the United States will come back and reestablish companies here or invest, listen up guys, will invest in the country because they're paying fewer taxes. Well, that worked. But here's the trick. If you're going to pull in less money to the federal government, you got to spend less money or the deficit's going to continue to get worse. And that's exactly what's happening. Right now, our national deficit and debt are increasing at a higher rate than they did in the previous presidential administration. And for somebody who says they're a financial conservative, that's not very fiscally conservative. There are some people who believe we should never worry about the debt. We're always going to have it. I'm not one of those people. Because who are we borrowing money from, guys? Who's our number one source of income when we borrow money? You got it. Do we have a friendly relationship with them always? No, not at all. Let's say, for example, like, hey, Sebastian, can I borrow $5, man? So he's willing to lend me $5. Well, 4 weeks go by, and I haven't paid him back yet. So I go back to him and say, hey, Man, I know I stole you that $5. Can I borrow another 10?
Definitely that 5 first.
That's exactly right. Who's with him? Who would want the 5 back first? Yeah, do I seem like a good risk? I'm not a good risk. Guys, so that's exactly what we're talking about here. Please, let's focus on the front of the room and the screen, not the phone. Guys, in terms of monetary policy, what we're actually talking about is how we manage money supply. And that means how much money do we have circulating. In the United States, for example, back in the recession of 2008, we literally started printing more money to stick it into the economy, hoping people would spend. In addition, the Fed, the Federal Reserve, controls interest rates. Right now, what are interest rates in the United States? What is the prime interest rate? Anybody know? It's close to 0. Why would you do that? If it costs very little to borrow money, why are they keeping it at 0? What are they trying to spur on? Any ideas? You got it. They want people to spend because it's not going to hurt me to pay it back. What else does it do? It keeps people from putting money in savings and encourages them to put it in the market. Let's say over here, actually this side of the room. If I could promise you that I'm going to give you just over 0% return, that's 100% certainty. You're going to get maybe 0.1% return on your savings. Or you might make 25% in the markets. Where are you going to invest? Yeah, hell yeah, I would too, man. I put money in the markets. It's always a good idea to do both, but that's why they're trying to keep the interest rates so low. And so again, when we're in a recession, they tend to decrease the interest rates. Right now, we're not in a recession, and the Fed is still keeping the interest rates low. Guys, that is chapter 2. We're going to stop for a second, and then we're going to do a review. But before I do, I would like a question or comment from each side of the room. Sir?
So we owe money to the government of China, right? The People's Republic of China.
Yep, we do.
So, hypothetically speaking, if the People's Republic of China collapsed and like a new government took control, do we still owe the money to China as a whole, or is it just the Communist Party that we owe money to?
That's a really good question. I would say that if a new regime came in, we'd probably get away scot-free. And I think when we think about this, why hasn't China collected on this debt anyway? Yeah, because we're their biggest customer. We are the biggest customer. So it's like the old term they used to use in the Cold War was MAD, M-A-D, mutually assured destruction. And that's why the Russians and the Americans would never launch nuclear war, because if they blow us up, we'll blow them up. We essentially have that kind of relationship with China. We need them for cheap goods and services, and they need us to keep buying from them. And so I think if a new regime came in, there's a good chance that debt could get forgiven because we just restart the clock anyway. That's my opinion. I could be completely wrong, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm a foreign policy expert, that's for sure. I couldn't even imagine at this point in time what that would be like, having that kind of reset again. Hopefully we'd learn some lessons. Great question. We need a question or comment from this side of the room. What would you like to know or ask? I'm dying to hear your thoughts. What's that? You know, I went in yesterday, and I honestly hadn't even thought about it. I didn't really care that much. And I ended up rooting for Kansas City, and probably because the last time I won a Super Bowl was, 50 years ago? And I think it's like, yeah, they're due, and have any of you guys ever been to Kansas City? It's a great city. I go there every year for a conference. Love that town. Barbecue's great. Why not root for them? I need a question or comment from this side before we review, guys. Help us move forward. If somebody's willing to ask a question over here, we'll get out of class early. Otherwise, I'll have to sit and stare at you until somebody does. None of us want that. What would you like to ask or say?
You make any bets yesterday?
I made no bets at all. Did you?
Yeah, I made a lot of bets.
Other than Trump, did you make any money on anything else?
Well, I made a lot. I only had 2 bets missed yesterday.
So what was your total take yesterday?
I ended up netting a little bit over $200.
Wow. So you should be buying us
And
donuts.
the only 2 things that didn't hit, I had a parlay that would make me $40 more, but if Patrick Mahomes would have done for 14 more yards.
Wow.
There was I had a 4-thing parlay in one leg.
So the lesson to be learned, if we're going to casinos, hang out with this guy. Wow, very nice. Congratulations on your big win. So, guys, we're going to review Chapter 2. Shout out the answers when you see them. Guys, a study of how society employs resources to produce goods and services for consumption among various groups and individuals with a concentration on the operation of a nation's economy as a whole. I'm sorry? Good guess, but think bigger. Yes.
Macro.
It's macroeconomics. Good. What did Thomas Malthus call economics? Was it the lonesome science, the bothersome science, the dismal science, or the pessimist science? It doesn't cheer you up, I'll put it that way. It is dismal. All right. When self-directed gain leads to social and economic benefits for the whole community. In other words, trickle-down economy, people keep the money moving based on their own personal success. It's a good guess, but it's the invisible hand. All right, almost all the land and factories and stores are owned by individuals, not the government, operated for profit. It is capitalism. I'm a happy capitalist. True or false? China is an example of a country that's experimenting with state capitalism. It is true. Yep. Which of the following is not one of capitalism's 4 basic rights? It is. That's correct. It's a right that we enjoy in this country, but it has nothing to do with capitalism as a right. All right. In a free market economy, true or false, a country's government determines how much of a product should be produced. That is false. Who does? Companies, and they do it with consumer demand. What determines the price of items in a free market? Competition's part of it. It's supply and demand. When supply and demand have crossed over, we have, is it set point market price, buyer's market, or seller's market? It is market price. Who said that? Very good. True or false? There's no such thing as perfect competition. That is true. There's no such thing as the tooth fairy either, but Punxsutawney Phil is real. I saw him this weekend. A large number of sellers make, I love the Groundhog Day commercial too. Did you guys see the Jeep commercial for Groundhog Day? Fantastic. Loved it. Large number of sellers making similar products that consumers see as different. Think about hamburgers. Is that perfect competition, oligopoly, monopolistic competition, or monopoly? Not an oligopoly. It is monopolistic competition. Which economic system is most likely to provide large amounts of government services? It's socialism. Socialism is the best for services. True or false? There are many incentives for workers and entrepreneurs to excel in a socialist economy. That is false. When the best and brightest leave a socialist economy, what do we call it? Everybody's leaving who knows anything. It's B, it's brain drain. True or false? The U.S. spends more money. This is one we didn't cover in class, so I'll see if you get this right. The U.S. spends more money on healthcare than any other country in the world. It's true. Guys, check this out. If you had to guess, out of every, I meant to include this as trivia somewhere in the lecture, and I didn't, so we're going to cover it right now. Out of every $5 spent in this country, how many dollars go to healthcare? It's 1. It's 20%, though. Guys, that's 20% of our whole GDP is healthcare. And we're falling right in the middle in terms of results. So we're not doing a good job with healthcare in this country. All right. An economic and political system in which the government makes almost all the economic decisions is communism. You better believe it. In blank economies, the government largely determines what goods and services are produced, who gets them, and how the economy will grow. Is it free market, monopolistic, command, or dying? It is command economy. Dying would be an okay answer too, but it's command. The total value of final goods and services produced in a country in any year, is that gross domestic product, economic well-being, a lot, or gross diuretic product? It is GDP. GDP meet ASAP. True or false? U.S. GDP is approximately $5 trillion. Oh, go up. It's about 20. It's over 20 trillion, so that's false. When a person leaves a job, says basically, I'm out of here. What kind of unemployment is that? It is frictional. I feel personal friction with somebody, so I'm out of here. They're chapping my you-know-what. True or false? The unemployment rate is a totally accurate measure of how many people are really employed. That is false, because it doesn't take into account the labor force participation rate. The general rise in goods and services over time, price-wise, is called, it is inflation, and it's not a dirty word. CPI, is that confidence price increase, consumer price index, California prune index, or consumer production index? It is B. Well done. The 4 phases of a long-term business cycle include all but the following, which is not part of the phases. Correct. All right. A recession followed by a short-lived recovery followed by another recession. What do we call that?
C.
Double dip. Nobody should be double dipping. It's terrible. All right, this bonus question. What's the name of the East German state manufactured car, the communist car?
Cat. It's right.
It begins with a T.
Trabant.
Trabant. Look at this beauty, a two-door wagon. Guys, have a wonderful day. I'll see you Wednesday.